Have a dollar coin? Anybody have a dollar coin? Really appreciate it. Please. Thank you. I'm broke. Thank you. Thank you, David. Okay. Maybe you'll get this back. Given to me by the mentalist. Before we get into the text, let's set the stage, okay? In Exodus 3, we meet Moses, a man who buried his purpose for 40 years after one failure. Sound familiar? He went from prince to shepherd, convinced his past disqualified him. But God had other plans. So, we're falling behind. One more, two more, one more. Okay, don't learn nothing. We're there. Okay. So, but God had other plans. So, please, if you don't have it right there in your program, we can read it right there. And on 3, let's read it together. Okay? So 1, 2, 3. So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Okay. So the word send comes from Hebrew shalak, and it means to release like an arrow. Okay? That fast. But here's the thing. Moses responds in a very peculiar way. Moses responds, Mianoki. And Mianoki means, who am I? Isn't that like a weird question to ask? He's saying, go out there, release my people. And he's asking, who am I? But God's response to that weird question is even weirder. He says, I will be with you. I will be with you. So stop asking, who am I? And start declaring, God is with me. Amen? Amen. So turn around, tell somebody, God is with me. God is with me. See, God didn't accept Moses' excuses because he had already factored in Moses' weaknesses. Your I can't is irrelevant to God's I am. So every time you say I can't, you got to trust God. He already took into account all of your weaknesses. Amen? Amen. So some of you are still waiting for a sign while your purpose withers. Moses argued with God for a whole chapter before obeying. So don't fall into that mistake. Amen? Today I'm excited because this is like one of my favorite parts. And we go into the New Testament. Back in the day, a talent was a coin. But that coin was worth around 20 years' wages. Okay? So one talent was worth approximately $1.5 million in today's currency. Okay? $1.5 million in today's currency. Okay? And I'm actually going to give it back. So, in the Mount of Olives, about a week before Christ faces a crucifixion, he's preparing his disciples for his departure. And of course, they're not happy. They're actually quite nervous about this. Okay? And they ask him, how will we know when you return, and how will we know that we are worthy when you come back? And he answers with 3 different parables. One is the 10 virgins. The second one is the talents that we're going to look at right now, and sheep and goats, which basically is about being compassionate. So now just imagine you're with your master. He's telling you that he's about to go. So they're sweating, they're nervous, their heart is pounding. And Jesus leans in and says, for the kingdom of heaven will be like, and we're ready? Yeah, okay. I will be interrupting throughout, okay, because there's just so much knowledge. It gives him goosebumps. Okay, so it says, for it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. Okay? He entrusted to them his property. He didn't give them anything. He entrusted them with his property. Amen? So for all of you who think I'm all that, you're not. It's his all that. He just entrusted you with that. Amen? So to one he gives 5 talents. So somewhere around $8 million. All right? To another, 2. And to another one, 1. To each according to his ability. So, isn't it interesting? He handed out the talents according to each one's ability. God will not give you that which you can't handle. So when faced with a situation that's hard, that you think is unbearable, rest assured that God has pre-equipped you with all the talent you need to handle it. Amen? And then he went away. And he who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them. Wait, stop. He went at once and traded with them. He didn't stop to see how much she or he or the other received. He took what they had, what was given or entrusted, and went straight to work. Amen? He didn't stop to see what else everybody else received. He didn't stop to boast and say, ha ha, I got 5, you got 2. No. He went straight to work. So basically, you can't compare yourself to others. Stop comparing yourself to others and get to work with what you have. Amen? And he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Okay. So who was the most successful? The 5 talent, the 2 talent, or the 1 talent? Shout it out. Who was the most successful? 5. Anybody else? Who gives more? Just 5?
I think 2.
2, okay. We'll get back to that. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with him. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents, and here I have made 5 talents more. And his master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. This just gives you, by the way, just an idea how wealthy this guy is. $8 million. You were faithful over a little. Okay? And I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents, and here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. So I ask you again, who was the most successful? 1? I've never heard that answer. Okay. 5, we got a 1.
5 and 2.
It's actually a trick question, okay? The 5 talented man ended up with 10. The 2 talented man ended up with 4, okay? But here's kingdom math. Both doubled their investment, okay? So it was 100% return on investment. Amen? The master gave the same praise to both because God doesn't measure your total. He measures your yield. So in layman's terms, it's what you do with what you got. Amen? Now he also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man. I'm sorry if I laugh. It really reminds me of some employees. But okay. Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent to the ground. Here, you have what is yours. Really? Really? His master had given him $1.5 million, and the best he can come up with is to criticize him? Really? I don't see you guys shocked. I'm personally, if somebody gives me $1.5 million, I don't criticize them. But okay. But his master answered him, You wicked, slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to he who has the 10 talents. Now, if you read between the lines, you can see the 1 talented man was envious of the 5 and 2 talent man. The 3rd man not only made excuses, he actually went as far as to criticize his master. He did not value what was given, and therefore it was taken from him and given to the person who was grateful for receiving the talents. Amen? So in fact, he strengthened he who he envied. That's why you should always be happy with what you have and do the best you can with it. Never try to compare yourself with someone else, because you never know how many talents they were given to begin with. In layman's terms, it's not about the amount. It's about what you do with the talents that were given to you. It's not about the excuses. It's about the results. Amen? Am I talking to somebody today? Yeah? Okay. I'm not hearing you. Come on. Talent. And if you're wondering, is that where talent comes from, as we understand today? It is. Okay, so every time you talk about people's talents, you're actually quoting the Bible. Okay? And talent comes from talenton. Okay? And talenton means a balance. That's what talent means. And which basically is interpreted in saying God weighs your capacity before he invests in you. Okay? But when the master says, "You wicked and slothful," he's actually using two very damning words. The first one is wicked. Wicked comes from poneros, which means active malice. Okay? Active malice. It's like an employee who's sabotaging the project but blaming his boss. Okay? So when Jesus called the servant poneros, he wasn't just saying lazy, he's saying you're actively sabotaging my trust. Okay? And slothful. Slothful comes from oknos. And what this means is paralysis of over-analysis. I don't know if you guys have ever run into a situation that seems difficult and you just start thinking it and overthinking it, okay? And then the opportunity's there, you're analyzing. When you finally make up your mind, it's gone, okay? That's what he's talking about, paralysis of over-analysis. So this story in itself can also be seen from a point of view that it's talking about excellence, okay? Excellent isn't about comparing yourself against somebody else. Excellence is doing the best you can with what you have. Amen? While I lived in Cancun, back in 2005, I was there, unfortunately, when the largest hurricane in history up to date hit. And the name of that hurricane was Wilma. Okay? And it stayed there for 3.5 days. Hurricanes usually come in, and that's it. This one stayed 3.5 days. Okay? The reason for that is that there's coral reef, and that's like a natural barrier, and usually hurricanes come in, they bounce off of that coral reef, and they hit Cuba. But in this case, the hurricane came in as a tropical storm, passed the coral reef, and then formed. And it was just so destructive. Yeah. Anyway, but during that time, there was a man who became a legend. Okay? And this man became a legend because he was a fisherman. And he was known for two things. One is that he always had a kawama in his hand. Well, what is a kawama? It's a big beer. It's this big bottle of beer. And he would always say, "I only know how to fish. So don't come and tell me anything. I'm just a fisherman. That's all I know is how to fish." And when the hurricanes are very destructive, but they're also like the nicest of all destructive forces because you know that they're coming. Okay, it's not like an earthquake. A hurricane, you know that they're coming. So there's no excuse for not being prepared. So all the fishermen, all the owner of boats were out there trying to protect their boats, and anybody who has a boat or has been on a boat knows that that's basically impossible. The best you can do is tie them up and pray for the best. Okay? So while everybody was preparing this guy is seen coming in with his nets and everything he needed to fish. And everybody's saying, "Are you crazy? Where are you going?" Because I'm going fishing. He said, "But a hurricane's coming in." "Yeah, I know." So he takes off. What they didn't know is that he had been studying the weather patterns and figured out that how to get past the storm into the eye of the hurricane where there's just peace and where all the fish go when there's a storm. So a week later, after the storm has dissipated, he comes back with his boat and he just sees everybody picking up the debris. And believe me, it was just bad. But he had a boat full of fish, Long story short, in 1 week, he made what he would have made in a year. Now, how many of you know people that will run from storms? As soon as they see a storm coming, they're heading out the opposite direction. But a lesson that is often overlooked in this parable is that a blessing is only a blessing when you recognize it as such. I'll say that again. A blessing is only a blessing when you recognize it as such. The Cancun fisherman didn't just sail into hurricanes, he mastered storm patterns. So while others saw danger, he saw divine positioning. His one talent became a legend because he refused to be mediocre. And here's the tragedy. God will give you gifts. He will give you blessings. But if you do not recognize them as such, and you call them burdens, you will lose authority. Because your talent will get transferred to somebody who does recognize it as a blessing. Second of all, it will empower your enemies. They will take your talent and give it to those that you envy. And third, you will inherit darkness. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get punished. It just means that you're going to get excluded from the celebration. Okay? So, God will gift you with talents, but you have to own them. Okay? You have to own the talents. These gifts are what we are supposed to manifest through our work, through our avodah. That's real work. God doesn't expect you to double what you don't have. He just expects you to invest what you do. So, church, it's time to own it. God didn't give you that special talent to store it. He gave it for you to own it. The idea you're sitting on, own it. The calling you've been negotiating with, own it. That storm you've been running from, sail into it and own it. The wicked servant didn't just bury his talent, he dishonored his master. He called the gift a burden. And in his rebellion, he strengthened the very man he envied. Oh, I only have one talent. Well, tell that to the fisherman in Cancun. Tell that to David with his slingshot. Mediocrity isn't humility. It's mutiny. And God doesn't need your excuses. He demands your excellence. You want more from God? Prove you can own what you already got. Amen? Amen. Turn to your neighbor and say, own it. Own it. No, I mean growl it. Tell it to their face. Own it. Own it. All right, so I want you to please stand up. And I want you to declare with me, please, on your feet. I want you to declare with me, God, I will own what you've entrusted to me. One more time. God, I will own what you've entrusted to me.
God, I will own what you've entrusted to me.
For to everyone who owns what they've been given, more will be added. But to those who make excuses, even what they have will be taken. The choice is yours. And while we're on our feet, let's go with the gospel. Because this parable, we're falling behind, there you go. Because this parable connects to Luke 19, the parable of the minas. There, the faithful servants were given cities to rule, and that could be you. So, let's read together. Well done, my good servant, because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter. Take charge of 10 cities. Amen? Amen. I can say amen to that. Have a seat. The Greek for trustworthy is pistos, and it means reliable in transactions. God tests your small before He trusts you with big. So, a little tip. Neuroscience has proved that in order to be excellent, first of all, name your emotions, okay? If you're scared, don't feel it, say it. I'm feeling scared. And all of a sudden, that emotion will go from your emotional part of the brain to your logical part of the brain. And guess what happens? You're no longer scared. Okay? 2, invest what you have. Invest your minimum. Don't be waiting for, tomorrow, next week, when I have more. If I only had this, invest what you have. And 3rd, find your tribe. What does that mean? Look around for like-minded individuals, those who have the same values, that same love, that same courage you do. Amen? Amen. All right. So your obedience today is God's down payment on your destiny tomorrow. Today, I rebuke the spirit of delay. And that business idea, launch it. That book, write it. That ministry, start it. The only thing worse than failure is never trying. Amen? Amen. Amen.